So how are you, Jerry?
I'm good. Doing great. Had a
I hope
personal,
we're not the only ones here for the class.
yeah, such a nice day. It could be one of those play hooky days,
Yeah.
going out and doing something outside.
Well, I think we still have a few minutes. So how's your dog training coming?
I had a personal trainer come yesterday for the
Oh.
first time, an individual trainer, I should say, because I've been going to classes and just decided the class teachers, and you know how classroom situations, it seemed like they always encourage you to ask questions, but they're all really busy and have jobs. And so a friend of mine gave me this referral, and so it's going really pretty good. I think and always the person that needs to train most is me, you know. So there's a 3-week break in our classes, and I'm not even sure, you know, she said yesterday, maybe lay out of classes for a little bit till we can get some of the issues under control. He just gets anxious, Mary, at this point. When we go to class, he gets all frenzied and anxious when we get there, and he doesn't get out of that mode mentally. So it's kind of like super anxious, super excited, and not listening very well or performing the way he can and should. Hey, we're getting everybody aboard here,
Okay.
at least.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Or Nancy.
Hi, Nancy. I don't see her. I don't see anybody.
Oh, so I have all Ted and Nancy.
Okay. And I'm not seeing them.
Have you got? There's that group view thing that you can hit, Mary. That I guess it's called gallery view.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah, that's good. Okay.
It should bring up all the participants.
Nancy, you're still on mute.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Hi.
Okay. Hi, Ted.
Hi. I'm anxious to hear Nancy's story for the week. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. It's kind of unbelievable that my daughter like hit a gold mine with what she's done.
Yeah.
And she contacted the people, and I don't know how much I've told you when things have happened, but I don't know if it was just last Friday, she on her lunch hour had an hour-long phone call with 2 of the women that are my half sisters. And so, did I already tell you guys this? So they had an hour-long phone call, and they've bonded. They're all best friends now. And I think I said that, you know, we're going to go visit. And then she shared my email with them. So now they've begun emailing me, and I've replied to.
Where do they live?
They live in the state of Washington, Southern
Okay.
Washington,
Okay.
in a small town. I don't remember the name of the small town, and I don't have the story as to why they're out there.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I can't even hardly wrap my head around this.
Hmm. Can't
And
imagine.
I'm just so surprised that they are so receptive and want to get to know me, and they're very curious, and they just opened right up to my daughter.
Yeah.
That's nice. That's very nice.
I really can't wrap my head around it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's very emotional, a lot to take in.
Well, it has hardly sunk in yet because since I was adopted, and of course I had a very, very loving family that adopted me, but I didn't have any brothers or sisters. I was an only child because they weren't able to adopt another child after me.
Mhm.
So I've just still always been alone, even though I was in a very wonderful adopted family.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to um, think about not being alone. Of course, I mean, I have my daughter, but that's the only person I'm really ever been really related to.
So Nancy, are your parents alive at this point?
No. Well, my adopted parents have both passed away. They were older when they adopted me in the first place. The biological mother passed away, and the biological father, he's alive. He's in his 86 or 87, but he has dementia. So they can't talk to him about it.
Mhm.
Okay.
And I mean, she mentioned the name, and then maybe I said this last week. He said, "Oh, that name sounds familiar," of the biological mother, but then he couldn't. Nothing else came because I guess his dementia must be a kind of a lot, and so I don't think my daughter doesn't think they're going to try to talk to him anymore.
Mhm.
But even more surprisingly, my half sisters, their mother is divorced from their father, my father,
Uh-huh.
for many years. But she has even written that she would be willing to share what she remembers from when she first met him.
Mhm.
Nice.
Was she
So-
aware that you existed? Did she
No,
know?
but no, she wasn't aware. I don't think she was aware of me,
Uh-huh.
but she was aware of my mother,
Oh,
her predecessor.
okay.
Yes. Yes.
And I don't have the whole story either. Their mother, I don't know if it's her or her mother, was adopted as an orphan. So this family already knows about people that are adopted. So maybe that is why they're more receptive, because this is already part of their family history to have an adoptee in there. And they've worked through some of those issues for a different generation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
so it must be really interesting to people interested in geology. I'm just like a deer in the headlights over it sort of myself.
Well, given that their father has dementia and they don't have to take this up with him,
Mhm.
that really gives your sisters a lot of freedom to make their own choices, because there's no loyalty issues there, because their father is not, your father is not responsive. And so it allows them to get that kind of adult distancing that
Mhm.
would be necessary, and really maturity too, to
Yeah. And one of them mentioned to my daughter in one of my daughter's first contacts with them, that now that they are in their, I guess, 50s and 60s, that as they're getting older, ancestry is much more important to them than if this had occurred 10 or 20 years ago. They wouldn't have been very interested, and now they are more interested as they're getting a little older.
well, that's the theory of generativity by the philosopher Bruno Bettelheim, and he says generativity is when we start looking at our lives and we are thinking about our connections and our relationships. And so sometimes that's the relationships to, say our past history, or for our, children, our grandchildren, etc. We want to leave something behind. And, for instance, I see it as, I'm just, I'm the family historian, and, I want to leave, I don't want all my family history that I acquired, very, very laboriously. I don't want that to go to waste, so my generativity says I want to, write up things and do some books and collect as many pictures and connections that I can. And then my other, and part of that came out of the fact that, my father was orphaned when he was 8 and knew very little family history. He maybe had 3 or 4 family stories. His brother, who was 12 at the time, knew a little bit more, but some of it was a little bit muddled. But at least, he knew the names of their grandparents on one side. And, I think I told you that I had this family murder that happened in 1897, a sextuple murder, and where my great grandmother, my Scottish grandmother, was murdered in North Dakota with her daughter, son-in-law, their granddaughter, and her 2 babies. And it was just an extremely brutal murder. Well, my father was born only 12 years after that murder, and he never heard about it. That's kind of that era where you just didn't tell kids things about, deaths or cancer or whatever. And it wasn't until the 1960s that he and his brother discovered that they were, that was their great grandmother in the murder, and they'd never heard about it. But, could be explained by the fact that, they were orphaned so young that but their own mother didn't tell them. And she was like a 14-year-old at the time and attended all the funerals. So anyway, all right. Well, it looks like this is all we're going to have today, a select 3, but we'll go ahead and get started. I want to talk about what we'll do today. We want to look at immigration, naturalization, and the censuses. And I wanted to remind you, I don't know if we talked about fuzzy searching. And fuzzy searching is the term for remember when I asked you at the beginning to make a list of all the names that you are researching and try to come up with alternative spellings? Well, when you go into an index, whether it's on Ancestry or FamilySearch.org or anywhere, you might want to use fuzzy searching, in which you use a name and you take out some of the letters and put in a question mark. A question mark stands for 1 letter. You use a star to use multiple letters. So for instance, let's say that you're looking for the name Wozniak. So, but you're really not certain if it's W-O or W-A. So you would put a question mark. You'd put W question mark and then N-K-I-A-K. Or if you weren't certain how it ended, you might put some asterisks. And that will give you, that fuzzy searching will give you more options. On many of the internet's search things, there's a little box under it that says exact. And you might want to put exact and do a search just to see what comes up. And then after you go through all of those exacts, if you find what you're looking for, or if you don't, go through and do some fuzzy searching using the wildcards. And
Did you say the 1 letter was the asterisk?
yeah, no, the 1 letter is the question mark.
Question mark. And then
And you can use the
what
asterisk for multiple
asterisk is
letters.
Okay. Thanks.
And that's called fuzzy searching. And that will give you, Ancestry kind of goes ahead and gives you alternative names, particularly ones like I was researching the other day for Bodka, the name Botka, and it gave me Bodka, Bodka, which is good because
Right.
vodka and vodka sound almost exactly the same. And remember, it's a Polish name, so the census taker might have been the one spelling it, not the person. I was thinking the other day about, I mentioned county histories and using Chronicling America, which is the Library of Congress newspaper set. And with that, you could look for the small newspapers where your ancestor might have been in town. But if they're foreign speaking, you might have difficulty getting them represented in a paper, because let's say you've got a Russian German that comes into town. Well, if he doesn't speak English well, he's not likely to talk to the reporter or the editor to say that he's in town to buy cattle or grain. So a foreign speaking ancestor might not show up in the newspapers in a small town. But and you could also look for if you are looking for a foreign speaking, there are many areas of the country that have foreign language newspapers. Now, the Library of Congress does not have a translation on there for them. So unless you read, say, German or Russian or Italian or something, you're not going to be able to read those. But I still, I was looking up Volk the other day, Volk, and it came up in all of these German newspapers in South Dakota. And then later on, I realized that of course it came up because Volk means people. And so they're going to, people is going to show up as a noun, not a name. So it might be hard to do that kind of search. But anyway, okay. Let me look. Oh, and we were talking about female nicknames the other day. This is so strange. I'm going to send you some more handouts as soon as Lori gets a chance to send them. And I have one on female nicknames, which amazingly I came across yesterday. I was going to look it up, and they come up with some nicknames. So I'll send it to you, but it's like for Abigail, Abby, Gail, or Nabby. Catherine, Kathleen, Catherine, Kathleen, Catherine, spelled with a C and a K. Kathy, Karen, Katie, Kay, Kit, Kitty, Riney, Rena, and Tina. And so you wouldn't think of Riney, but if someone's name is Catherine, Riney is a nickname. And Dorothy and Dorothea, of course, are Dora, Dot, Dottie, Dortha, and Thea. So anyway, and then they have also the most popular female names by the decades. And so that might allow you to look at, like, say 1910, it was Mary, Helen, Dorothy, Margaret, Ruth, Mildred, Anna, Elizabeth, Frances, and Virginia. And Frances and Helen are names that reappear in my family through the different generations. So those were popular names. So anyway, I'll send that to you. I'm also going to send you a map because I think it is fun to chart, make some copies of this. And I don't know if your relatives, moved a lot, but it's great to chart where they came from. Maybe they landed in New York and they went to Iowa, or maybe they stayed back east. My Irish coal miners were all over the Midwest and Kansas. And so I've got a chart that looks like, a zigzag. It's, all the small coal towns, Decatur, Illinois, one of my elderly aunts, when she was in her 90s, said, I remember them going to Colorado. And I thought, oh, that can't be right. But I hadn't found them in a census. And sure enough, I went back when I got back home, I went and there they were in Lead Mine, Colorado, in Stray Horse Gulch. And I looked it up and found out that the Cyclops mine was in Stray Horse Gulch. So that's where they were, not for very long. And so that was a great hint. So, you have to kind of listen. I've said that, there's a lot of mythology around family stories, but, trust a 95-year-old aunt that really had a great memory. Okay, so I'm going to send you the female nicknames. I'm going to send you the maps. I'm also going to send you a case study. This is on how I got started and what I found out about the relative I was looking for, Bernard Clark. And I was looking for his daughter, my great-grandmother. And that just took me through all of the different things that I did to actually find her birth parents. And then I'm going to send you a write-up of Jack Wall. This is the Bernard Clark case study. And then I'm going to send you a study that is John S. Waldron, an early Emmons County pioneer. And this is just an example of how you do a biography of someone and include the things that you found out that don't really fit in a family tree. And for instance, this is my great grandfather, and he was the one that was on supposedly the one that rode with Custer, but it was actually the Yellowstone expedition in 1872 that explored the Yellowstone Valley. So I found all kinds of books and pictures and plates, drawings, etchings of that expedition. I mean, there weren't too many photographs in 1872. I mean, there were some, but not too many. And so I've collected a lot of that. The archives in North Dakota actually had a picture of his hotel that I had to buy for $70, but it was worth it to get it. Then he is the one of which I was the recipient of the 45 photos that a woman in Canada sent me. And in there was a photo of him that I identified because he's the only, as they called him in the newspaper, the portly 240-pound hotel owner. So he's the only one in the family range of pictures that looks like he weighs 240 pounds and as a fairly, youngish man. So anyway, so that is a write-up that I will send you and then I'm going to send you another one that is another person that is another way to write it up is this is year by year. 1849, I found he was born in Putnam County, New York with his parents. Then I find him in the 1850 census. Then I find him in 1860, 10 years later, 1870. And I go through all the way with all of the dates and the various things that I've found out about him, plugging in. Remember, children are an anchor. They give you dates and their birth dates and their places of where they're born, anchors them into a particular town. And on this this particular history, George Ostrander, I haven't really filled it out. This is just dates and all the things that I will use to build a larger history like I did on my great-grandfather. But with the George Ostrander history, I caught him a lot within the different newspapers in chronicling America. And although he lived in Steuben County, New York, I found that he was buried in Tioga, Pennsylvania. And if you look at the map, and remember, you want to look at an atlas a lot, they're very close by. And he had a sister there. So he was carried in both the columns of those newspapers in the society, what's going on in the, it's like he visited, and he visited his sister, and he came for a brunch or things like that. But again, that, may give you names of his relatives. For instance, if women remarry, sometimes it's hard to catch them with a second marriage because they just disappear from the census. So sometimes those social columns will tell you, he visited his sister Emma Russell, and gee, I've never seen the name Russell. I look up Russell and I see her with a David Russell, and it shows us a second marriage. So she remarried. So those are the kinds of things that you can find out. And again, that's Chronicling America, which is the Library of Congress newspaper set. Now, not all of the newspapers that you are looking for are going to be digitalized. Sometimes you're going to have to, go to a library and find them. But if they live near a fairly good sized city, they're going to have at least a weekly newspaper, and you can look up things. So, okay, I'm going to start my share screen and go with my, okay, just one moment. I had it up. Okay. 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 All right. Okay. You see this? So we were talking about federal sources last time. And it's too bad that Mary Frances isn't here. I hope she'll join us because I found a source for her civil records. Remember, she was searching, she was interested in finding civil records for her relatives that were in federal civil service. I found out that those records are in St. Louis. Okay. So we talked about city directories, and we talked about, can everyone see this?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
We talked about the city directories. The genealogical libraries have them. Ancestry has them online, and they will often, the city directories are, everyone is in the city. So you'll catch widows in them. The Polk directories are business directories. So you won't catch a woman unless she has a particular job. So the city directories are a better bet, and they often will have young women. Even if the young women are, say, working or 18 or 19 years old, it'll have them listed under BS, which stands for bed sit. And that means that they've got a room. In many cases, the room is at their parents' house, and because it's the same address. But what you can do with the city directories is you can go through and you can look for other relatives. And remember, you want to do cluster genealogy because you may find out more about somebody's brother or sister than you do your own particular relative. Maybe they're all in business together, maybe, and that would show that he's got somebody by the same name in that business. Maybe it shows some children that you haven't caught that are still living with them. Remember, censuses are every 10 years. So if children are born, say, after the 1880 census sometime, and there's no 1890 census because it burned up, that, you might discover children that were born in that 20-year period. And by 1900, they're already out of the home. And it's difficult to find them. So the city directories might give you those children that you might be missing. Genealogical and Historical Society publications. I think I mentioned last week that I joined the South Bend Genealogical Society for $20, and they were very, very prompt. They sent me an email very quickly, gave me a member name and ID, and allowed me to get into their database. And they had 500 immigrant trees. And they had all the church records for the Catholic churches in South Bend, Indiana, and various towns around there. It is an absolute gold mine of information that is not there in Ancestry. So I feel like I've only been, had my membership for a week, and I have found more people than I can, tell you about. And also by joining a genealogical or historical society, you also have access to, they usually have a historian, and it's not uncommon to shoot an email to them or to send them an actual letter and ask them to look up something for you. And we're not talking about, big research, but a date, or, do you have a picture of this person? Do you have a picture of their house, etc. And sometimes they will, scan those things and send them to you. I've had very, very good luck with societies. Okay. Funeral home histories. The Midwest Genealogy Library has a lot of funeral home histories, and that is that sometimes funeral homes publish their own books, or sometimes genealogical or historical societies go and copy all the records and put it in book form. And these are not on Ancestry. So you could, try the Midwest Genealogical Library, which is open, by the way. And I should mention, I'll show you this. This is my little kit that I take out to the genealogical library. And in it, I have Post-it notes. I have highlighters. I have little things for scanning. I usually have a flashcard in here so that I can use their scanner and index cards. And then I also have, if you take your own flash drive, you can use the library scanner and not pay for copies. You can just download them. And then I have this little, this is some kind of little kit. Oh yeah. Anyway, if I could get it open. Anyway, it has a stapler in here, and I can't get it open, but it has a stapler in here and paper clips, etc. I have a ruler, and my most favorite, a big magnifying glass, because, I don't know about you, but my eyes are going, and it's hard to read lines. A ruler, because if you're looking at, intent, dates, etc., you want to be able to be on the right line. So anyway, that's my, I also have a bag of money in here somewhere, change for the copier, which are usually anywhere from 15 cents to 25 cents a copy. And I take this with me. I also take a lumbar cushion for my back, because the hard chairs are there, and I usually take a lunch and some snacks. Because if I'm going out to Independence to do research, I want to be prepared and be able to take some nice breaks. But anyway, so that's my research kit, and lots of paper.
They have some good classes to offer.
What's that?
They have good classes to
Yes,
offer.
they have very good classes. And usually for this class, I usually go out to the library and bring you back their catalog, but I haven't been there. It just opened about 2 weeks ago. So you can go and research there. And you can also get an appointment with a research specialist in your area. And like a specialist in Irish research, or a specialist in Czech research, or whatever. And you can make an appointment, and they will sit with you and try to figure out some research details. But like Ted says, it is great to take some of their classes. when I was first starting out, I took one on Scottish research, and it was very, very, very helpful. Okay. We've talked about biographical histories that are occupationally oriented, like lawyers in Kansas. And these, again, will be at regional libraries, or the Genealogical Library has a lot of them. Church histories, synagogue histories, mosque histories. Again, these are usually published by, it can be by the actual organization, or it might be a historical society goes in and um, does all the records. And then Yizor books. Yizor books are the books that are at a Jewish synagogue, and they are the history of someone's family. And they're particularly important. You can go on jewishgen.org, and they have some Yizor books there. And, you know, in the Jewish faith, if a woman is Jewish, her children then are automatically Jewish. So many people put their children in the Yizor books, even if they've converted, even if they don't practice, because if their children want to practice Judaism later on, the Yizor books would have the proof that they are indeed Jewish through their mother. Any questions about that? For some reason, I'm not seeing you all. So Jerry, you'll have to tell me, where I'm screen saving, but you all have disappeared. And I can't seem to get you back.
Okay, I don't know that I know for sure either.
Yeah.
Mary, so I'm going to click on screen share and see where that
Okay.
will stop
still
screen
here.
sharing.
Nancy's there.
Yeah. Now I'm just seeing me. I'm not seeing any of you. So there you're back. Okay, you're back. Okay, now.
But now we don't see your screen share.
Okay, so yeah, I'm gone. Okay.
In the upper right-hand corner, there's view, and you could have speaker view or gallery view. Have you tried that up there?
Yeah, it says I'm just viewing Jerry's screen right now, and it's asking me if I want to leave. Okay.
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm probably clicking around here as the co-host and not knowing what I'm doing. I mean, if everybody goes blank, it's my fault. So.
Okay, just a minute. Okay, I'm good. Okay. All right, now I'm going to go back to now you guys are back. Okay, now I'm going back to screen share, and I'm going back to my PowerPoint. Okay, and I'm going to go share. Okay, we're back, but you're gone again. Okay, well, somebody just speak up if you have a question, okay? All right, the next one is federal sources. We've looked at the military service records are at the National Archives, and that should be "and" right there, and the Records Administration at that's the NARA. And you all know that we have a National Archives at Union Station, and it covers 5 states. It covers Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska, North Dakota, and South Dakota. That's the Central Plains region. And you can go online, NARA KC, and look and see at the very end, look up the records that they have. Yesterday, I just shot them an email and asked them, because they have the Leavenworth prison records from about 1889 to 1945. And I asked them I looked up in the index a prisoner I'm looking for. He's a character in my book, and he did time for alcohol, illegal alcohol sales in 1903. And so I sent them an email asking for that file, and they will reply within 10 days. I don't know if that's later because of COVID, but they'll get back to me with how many pages it will cost to copy those files. And then if I send them a check or go online to charge it, then they'll send me the file by email. If I was, if they were open, I could go down there and do it myself and just pay the copying fees. But this seems like it might be easier, as I want a picture of him. So anyway, the Army, Navy, Marine Corps from the Revolutionary War is a federal source. The United States Command, the War of 1812, which lasted 3 years, 1812 to 1815, the Mexican War, 1846 to 48. So they have all those particular records. This is a this is a mustering out. This is a Civil War discharge. And it says that Michael Donahue served. He was born in Ireland, and he was 19 years of age, and he served in the, it's hard to read, but he is the 16th military, the state volunteers in New York. And he served, it gives the time that he served. And then it says his occupation is on here. I thought it was Skinner, like a mule skinner, but it's actually spinner. He worked in the mills in upstate New York, and there were a lot of cotton mills there. So anyway, so this gives a discharge, and so then you're able to go and look up the unit and the history where he served and what battles they were in. And remember, I said that there are online and there are books about every day of the Civil War, so you can figure out their particular history. The other thing that you can do is you can go and you can look up, say, Michael Donahue. If he lived to 1890, he will be in the veteran census, and most of the veteran censuses survived because the states kept them rather than sending them to Washington, where the 1890 federal census burned up. Okay, so more federal sources. I said the Indian Wars, the Civil War, the Spanish-American War, service records dating at least 75 years ago can be accessed by Form NATF 80, Order of Copies, Veterans Records. And again, a lot of these are online. The World War II are online with Ancestry, and so are Korean War records because they're older than 75 years. And the 1890 veteran census, only Louisiana through Wyoming exists. If you were in Alabama, tough luck because that burned up. And there are some fragments for other states, so check your state. And again, for this, you know, if you're interested to see if your ancestor served in the Civil War, keep in mind that he could be anywhere from 13 years old to 60s. So it was not a young men's war as the war dragged on. So men volunteered even though they were kind of considered very elderly at 60. And also men lied about their age at 13 and 14 to get into the war. And so I ran across a veteran who never owned up to the fact that he was actually 12 when he joined up. And he never told anybody. They assumed he was young because in the 1890s, he had Civil War service, but he never told anyone that he was 12 years old. And I think it was because he was afraid he wouldn't get his pension for some reason. So he kept it very quiet. It was only after his death and looking at his birth date that I realized that, you know, in 1861, he would have been 12 years old. And then I saw his muster when he was mustered in and he was mustered out. And, you know, he lied about his age all that time, but his birth date was, made him 12. So anyway.
I've used Fold 3.
Yes.
I haven't paid for it, but I'll go online through the library and then use their thing, and Fold 3.
Yes. Ted, Ted is pointing out an excellent source of military records is Fold 3, and it is if you have the premium ancestry membership for $400 a year, it comes with that, as well as newspapers.com, another newspaper subscription service that goes into the more recent years. And but you can get it from the library on free, and it has a lot of records that Ancestry does not have. So thanks, Ted. So that's a good. Okay. Let's see. All right. We want to start on censuses. And I mentioned the 1890 veteran census. And I apologize for the quality of these records, but they're really hard, they're handwritten and they don't photograph well. But this is what a 1890 veteran census looks like. It's handwritten. It has the person's name. It has the state in which they served. It has the exact dates, like the 2nd of July, say 1861 to April, whatever. And then over here, it tells you where they served. They served in the 14th Cavalry, and the exact time of their service. Then if you go down here and go, let's see, number 1, it's going to have some remarks, and the remarks are going to say if they've had an injury, or what is their injury as a result of the war. Now, many times you'll see rheumatism, you'll see arthritis, you'll see kidney problems, etc. But you can also see, gunshot, or lost left eye, had, foot amputated, etc. So this down below gives you some wonderful history about what happened. I had done a lot of research about this one editor of a small town newspaper. And when I saw him in the veteran census, it said that he had lost his left eye. And so that means that something new, that he might have spent time in one of the hospitals. And there are, Fold 3 has some records, and that he also might be eligible for a veteran's home after he retires or when he gets elderly. So that's another source to look for him. And the military veterans homes, they're all over the country, have a social history, and they will tell you if he's married, if he's divorced, what his occupation was, just basically what kind of health he's in, and it'll have a list of all of the times that he stayed there. So you can get a clue as to how healthy your person was, or did he just go in because he was retired and widowed and no one to take care of him, or did he have some real health problems that he needed actual care. I had a great uncle who served in World War I, and he always served. He was a hospital steward, and he never got out of the country, but he must have caught something like tuberculosis or heart, I don't know, rheumatic fever or something, because he had considered a war injury, and he ended up dying when he was 47. But I found his records, his hospital records, and he was in and out of veterans hospitals, complete with, for long periods of time. So whatever it was, he contacted it during the war, and that's why he died so early. Okay, let's look at the next one. Another federal source are homestead entry papers. To the right is an example of the first page of a homestead application taken out in 1899, Rosa Waldron, and it's section 26, town 131, range 79 west. So Rosa Waldron took out this homestead application, and since it's in a female's name, that means she is either single or she is widowed. They could not be taken out by married women. The land grants, the Bureau of Land Management has records, 1908, tract books, survey plats, and land title documents. And so look up the Bureau of Land. It's BLM .glo records. And if you know where your people live, like say Erin, Rice County, Minnesota, you can find the Bureau of Land Management records and see if they had homestead land. Now the Bureau of Land Management records might say 1908 or 1916, but they will have older homestead records in there because the land changes. Like, let's say your people stopped farming and sold their land. Well, it will still be in there. And the NRA, the National Archives, has case files of individual patentees as well as post 1908 entries. And remember, we've said that when the Homestead Act went in effect in 1862, it did not cover the land that was already taken up, which was all, the 13 original colonies. You're not going to find homestead land in Connecticut or Massachusetts because all the land was already owned. The public lands were in Kentucky and Georgia, and that was a land that was not owned by anyone, that kind of was like owned or taken on by the federal government. And those were the lands that were given as bounty lands in the French and Indian Wars and the Revolutionary Wars. So I've said before that if you have people that are from Connecticut or Massachusetts or New Hampshire, and they all of a sudden land up in Georgia or Tennessee or Kentucky, it might be because of land bounty. And the University of Virginia has all of those records, which are excellent. Okay. And more federal census records, 1790 to 1930. It's the best single source to get overviews of families available. The Midwest Genealogical Library, Ancestry.com, fee-based, but still free at the libraries until June. HeritageQuest.com, fee-based and free at the libraries right now. Find My Past is fee-based, and then www.jenny.com is a free site for trees. So you might want to go on that and post a particular tree. Now, I apologize for the quality of these censuses, but again, they're handwritten, the ink is faded, and I looked around and these were the clearest, the best that I could come up with. So here's one for 1790. And it is, you can see that they list all of the heads of households, and they do not list any wives or children, but they give the people in the family. And up here is like a male age, 20 to 40, a female age 20 to 40. And then, so this particular person has 2 males in that range and 2 females and 0 children. So that's probably an older couple, maybe living with some brothers and sisters, but they have no children. And you can see down here, for instance, there's 2 adults and there's 6 children. So again, you're not going to find anybody but the head of household. And it is done again by particular towns. We go to the 1880, it's very similar. And again, it's going to have a hash mark for the different age groups. Again, only heads of households listed. We go to the 1810, same, but they give you a little bit more information because they break down the ages a little bit better. So you're going to have somebody like right here, this is going to be, the parents and then some older children, and they have a gap there, and then they have some younger children. So, and it'll be male or female. Now this, for 1810, it's very discouraging because you're not going to find, you know, any relatives. You're not going to find any names of even wives or children. And you're just guessing as to how big the family is. Okay. The 1820 census, again, very similar. And there is, you know, the gap, the more ages here. So you get the age. But what you will find if you look at all the census papers, census tables, remember that you're looking for relatives. You're looking for those collateral relatives. And if you know a female maiden name, maybe they're around, maybe they're on the adjoining farms. My husband's family has had some Irish Kavanaghs that came over and were listed. They came over very early, around 1820, to New York, and they are listed there with the older parents, and then the next 3 farms are all of their sons, Walter, Peter, and Charles. So right in one fell swoop, in one census, you're getting all the sons. And then as you go into a later census, then you're getting the names of the wives and all the various children. The 1830 census looks really the same with the hash marks and just the name of the householder. Okay, 1840. The very same here. And then 1850, bingo. This is where you get the list of everyone in the family. And so you see that right here is someone, here is their wife, and here's someone with all of the children. Sorry, take that out. And all of the children, and it gives their names. Even the baby is given as 1 with a dash over the 12. So they've got a baby that is 1 month old. So you look at the census for August, and you see that the census was taken in August. So the baby was born, this particular baby was born in July. And it gives the, everyone probably in these censuses are farmers, unless, you know, you're in a small town and somebody tends to be a cobbler or a merchant or something. But for the most part, you're going to have, and it's going to ask where they were born. For instance, Timothy Farley right here is a 58-year-old farmer and is born in Ireland. The DO means same. So his wife, Astavia, was born in Ireland, and their two children, Dorian and Mary, were born in Ireland. So it's 1850, and you've got their 22-year-old daughter born in Ireland. So you know that 22 years before 1850, they were in Ireland. But look at the next child. The next child is born, no, but all their children. But what you're looking for is a pattern. Like this, for instance, this child is born in New York. So you know, again, that they were in New York, you know, 3 years ago. So it gives you, remember when I said that you're going to do that timeline with the children's birth and their place of birth as an anchor, gives you an idea of where they are. The 1860 census is very much the same. That gives you the place of birth, which is very, very helpful. And remember that most of the time these are accurate. Remember that people, if they were born in Ireland in 1860, and they're in the 1860 census, they're going to have a brogue. They are going to sound foreign. If they're German, they're going to sound foreign. So the census taker will always ask them where they were born. I have a lot of Scots in my tree, and many people assumed they were Irish because they didn't recognize what they call the Scottish burr. You know, Irish have a brogue, Scots have a burr. And if people don't know the distinction between them, they will assume they're Irish. Okay. 1870. This is the gold mine for researchers. And this is very dense, but what this does is it tells you where the person was born, where their father was born, where their mother was born, and if they immigrated, the year they immigrated, which is right here in this category. So if you've got foreign born people, this will give you a year of immigration. And it also asks them if they're naturalized. And if they are naturalized, they will have NA there. Now, keep in mind that as people migrated over, they sometimes forgot the exact year they came. So let's say that this person says that this is 1870, and this person says that they immigrated in 1863. It may not be accurate. It may be 1862. It may be 1864. These change, the years that immigrate, they change through the census. So what you have to do, if you're looking for somebody, don't get stuck on that particular year. It might be a range of maybe 3 years if people forget when they immigrated. If you're doing any African American research, this is the gold mine because this has the first time that African Americans are listed by their last names in the census. So again, pay attention who they are close to. They might be close to their former enslavers, particularly if they have the same last name. You want to look over here for the category to see if they're listed as Black, or B for Black, or M for mulatto. That might give you a clue if you're looking for that kind of research. The 1880 census, and again, apologies for this. This was the clearest one I could find, but this is a good example. This is an 1880, and again, it gives the person's name, the wife, the children, and where they were born, right here, and then and where the father and the mother were born, and then over here, it got cut off, is the occupation. And this particular one was taken June of 1880, and it's in Dakota. And this is what you want to pay attention to for your notes. This is SD, and that's called Supervisor's District. And in ED is the Enumerator's District. And you want to write those down, because if you have to go back to look up this census again, you want to be able to find it. And then over here are going to be the lines. This particular person is line 1, his wife is line 2, their child is line 3, and their servant is line 4. And you want to put all of those down, because if you forget to look at a census and you want to go back and find it again, it's nice to have. And you also will, if you're doing a good family history, you're going to source where they were in 1880, and you're going to put in the Supervisor's District and the ED district, and you're going to have the date, and and then you're going to have the line, line 1 through 4. And again, those are good things to do, because you want to be able that people can find your research or replicate it. You don't want to have to go back and look at it. This particular one I had handy because it is my great-grandfather who was the city marshal this is Bismarck, in the county of Burleigh, North Dakota. And this is the one I told you about that I wasn't paying attention the first time I looked at it, nor did I take down good notes to be able to find it again. But what I failed to notice is right here that I thought there was only Jack Waldron, his wife, and their child. But the fourth person there is listed as a servant is actually Annie Clark, who is his wife's sister. So she wasn't a servant. She was a young 19-year-old living with her sister, and the census taker assumed because she had a different name that she was a servant. So, not that it's uncommon in the census to find a 21-year-old and his 20-year-old wife to have a 19-year-old servant, but I mean, it happens. But in that case, I totally missed the fact that she was living with him. My bad. Okay. The next one is the 1900 census. And remember that the 1890 census does not exist except for the veteran census. This one is an interesting one because, again, it gives you, it's probably my favorite census. And I know I'm not supposed to discriminate against this among the censuses, but I like this one a lot because it gives the birth parents, the mother and father where they were born and where the person was born. And again, it gives the year for naturalization, when they immigrated, and then the occupation. And it lists all the children. So 1900 census is a great one. The 1910 census is very interesting. It has all the same information as before, but I'm sorry, go back to 1900. 1900 asks the person how many years they were married. So again, you could, if they married 4 years, subtract 4 that they married in 1896. So that is a great thing. There is also a category for how many children were born to this woman. This woman has 6 children and 2 of them are living. So that tells you right now that, they had a bigger family, but only 2 are still alive. So you'll be looking for 2 children. Okay, in 1910, it gives you the same information where the person was born, but it asks them, what is the age, the first marriage? What age did they get married? And so and it also asks how many marriages. So if you've got somebody here that is on their second marriage, this gives you a date as to their first marriage. Let's say they're on their second marriage, but it says, when did you get married the first time? And they say 18. Well, then you could go back and look, you have a date now for that first marriage. And again, the same question, how many children did you have and how many are living? Then where were you born? Where was your father born? Where was your mother born? And then this is important over here. It asks, what language is your native tongue? So this is particular, in this particular one is English for most of these people, but you will find in immigrant communities that maybe German is their first. I've seen ones where Yiddish is listed if it's a Jewish community. And then again, here is the occupation. And then this particular question, 1910 asks if you served in the Civil War. So if your relative is still alive in 1910, it'll ask, well, in 1910, are you a veteran? That means there was only one, war that you could be a veteran of, and that was the Civil War. So 1910 will give you a clue as somebody served in the Civil War. Okay. Okay, the 1920 census, again, has almost the same questions as the 1910, but again, it asks you your parents, it asks you, it doesn't ask you the language. I don't know, it doesn't ask you your language. Okay, but it's same information. We get to the 1930. The 1930 is interesting because there are some social questions on here. The 1930 asks you if you own a radio. Now, that seems to be a funny question, but it will give you a clue as to how, I want to say, middle class or your family was, because they're interested in how many people were in the modern age and owned a radio. So again, the same information, but asks you if you have a radio. It also asks you to estimate, I think, how much money you made in the last year. So that gives you a clue as to their economic status. 1940 census, this is really hard to read, but the same information, but the 1940 census asked an important question. It asked where your residence was in 1935. So it might give you a clue as to where someone was in 1935. And okay. Any questions about the censuses? And again, I can't see you, so you have to shout out.
And when did you say the 1950 census with all this information will come out? Is
The 1950 census comes out in April of 2022.
okay, next year. Okay.
Yes. And I was gonna, let's see, I had a note on that because I know we had talked about it. Yeah, because it'll be 72 years old. And it asks the household income in 1949. And it, again, I think it asks again where you lived in 1945. So that will give you some good information. So next spring, it will come out. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
And I have found things when you, and you mentioned 2 years ago, you know, when you find somebody you've been looking for, and then you look forward and backwards a few pages to see, and you stumble upon other relatives because they all lived in the same community.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So it's, you know, that's a really good strategy to look around the census and see, you know, we said that people sometimes have farms that are close by, or they've inherited them from grandparents. So maybe they're next to their parents, or maybe the parents have divided their farms up so that each son can have a plot. Remember, a homestead plot was 160 acres. And that's a fairly, you know, good size plot of land. And people bought other homestead, when people gave up homesteads, they bought them up, or it was just an outright land transaction, or they bought patents. That is, people did not prove out their homestead lands, and the county put them up for sale, and people were able to buy them. And for instance, my great-grandfather had 660 acres. He had a timber claim, another 160 acres, and that was when the government paid you to plant trees on, it was the same as a homestead plot. You had 160 acres. So he had 320 just from his timber claim and his land claims. And then he bought another couple land entries from people that didn't need them. So he had about 660 acres, and he ran cattle on them. The timber claim had, all the trees had died. And I found out from his timber claim, going through the Bureau of Land Records, found a timber claim, and all of his neighbors had to go to the land office and make an affidavit that he had planted so many cottonwood trees, so many elder trees, so many ash trees, and they had all died because the winters were so fierce that you could not keep trees alive in the very fierce Dakota winters, which sometimes had drifts of over 40 feet. And it snowed, the snow did not melt until late May in the Dakotas, and the rivers were still iced up. So I don't know how anybody could have grown trees in the Dakotas in that era, but that was okay because my grandfather used it all for cattle grazing, and that's really probably what he wanted anyway. Okay. All right. Again, the US Gen websites, the different project sites for the different states might have some of the censuses for your area, but a lot of times they're not indexed and you have to go through them page by page. The Family History Centers, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I apologize, they have a new name, and I need to change that. They have what they call stake offices where you can go and look at their records on the computer. There's one out in Liberty. There's one at like 110th and Holmes Road. And they have different volunteers that can get, I don't know if they still get microfiche in for you. They used to be able to order that stuff in for you to their office, and you could, pay a couple dollars a roll and watch it. But now they're trying to digitize all their records. So I don't know where they are in that. I've got to check on that. And then www.familysearch.com is the Family History Center's website, and registration is required, but it is free and you could post trees. And it also has the familysearch.com, Family Search wikis, and wikis are of course like Wikipedia, information about different records. And the issue is they're trying to digitize all their records that were on microfiche. So they're, for instance, they're doing a lot of track records, track books, and that is a particular, like an atlas of a county with all the land that is all the land records. And that'll be great when all those are on, because you could go into a particular county and look for the land that your ancestors might have owned, and they'd be in a track book. You can look for the states for the track books as well, but that is a big thing with familysearch.com, and they're digitalizing their records day by day. So check into them often and put up a family tree, and they've got some records that Ancestry doesn't have. Questions, any? Okay. All right, let's look at immigration records. The first port of entry for immigrants was Castle Garden, and that is 1830 to 1892. And so if you're looking for some early people, they came through Castle Garden. Now, any earlier than 1830s, you're going to have to look for different ships records. That individual passenger ships. But this is the first processing center for immigrants in the United States. And you can go to castlegarden.org. They've got records online. The next one is the famous Ellis Island, 1892 to 1924. And it is, I don't know how many of you have been to Ellis Island, but it is so exciting. When I was there, I was under the impression that that's where my relatives came in. Actually, they probably came through Castle Garden because they were much earlier than I originally thought, but it was still exciting to see Ellis Island. And again, the myth, their names were not changed at Ellis Island. They had 162 translators that could speak all kinds of dialects, and you could get someone in your native language if you did not speak English. So names were not changed. They were the ones that you left your country with. That was the name. Now, that doesn't mean that you might not have been traveling under an assumed name or that you got fake ID in your home country. This happened to my husband's. Okay. My husband's grandfather married twice. He had what is called he's Jewish, and he had what is called a levirate marriage, in that you are required to marry your widowed sister. So after his wife died, his sister-in-law was widowed. So he came over to America to marry her. Okay. But I have never been able to find that family, and he had children of his own. He had 3 children of his own. His wife, he was also a widow. So he comes over to America. I've never been able to find them at Ellis Island or Castle Garden. And I can't find them on any ship's list. I've looked for 20 years. Well, what turned out is that his wife-to-be turned out was very devious. And she must have sent him the passport of her first husband, because that's what he traveled on. And he traveled under that name and all of his children's names with the wrong last name. And so you couldn't find him. I mean, I never would have thought about that. And I had a researcher that was looking for was researching the daughter of this first husband with the alias, with the passports. And she contacted me because I had a big tree on Ancestry, and she figured that I had done the most research, and told me the story that she found this record of this guy traveling, and she knew it was impossible because he'd been dead for 12 years, but his passport was used, and he had came through Canada, and there were the names. And looking at my tree, she figured out who he was and how it had worked out, and contacted me and let me know. And so I never would have found that record in 10,000 years. So that did go on. There was, some falsity there to travel, but that's somewhat rare, and amazing that I found out the real story behind it. Angel Island operated from 1910 to 1940, and that is in California. And if you had people that came from the Far East or Australia, New Zealand, etc., they might have come through Angel Island. And there are also records, angelisland.com. Okay, so immigration, there are ships passengers list. There are the famine immigrants, 1846 to 1851. This is, I think this is online, but it's also a book out at the Midwest Genealogical Library, a series of books. Migration from the Russian Empire, and remember we said that Germans were a part of that. Swedish passenger list, 1820 to 1855. Czech immigrant passenger list edited by Leo Bacon. German passenger list, these go on and on. You can see there's two particular areas, and then the Germans to America, the Hamburg passenger list, when people came through the port of Hamburg. There's also Italians to America. Those are all indexed, and they add to them yearly. So you might have to go through 5 or 6 books to look up someone new. They don't do the indexes. They don't redo the indexes. They just redo the new ones. So keep on top of that if you're going out to the library to look at those.
And those are all at the Midwest Genealogical Library?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And some of them might be online. I really haven't checked that lately, but there are going to be ships passenger lists that you can look through. Okay, here's Angel Island, is Angel Island SF, Pacific, Chinese, Japanese, World War II, Russian, Jewish immigration, U.S. soldiers returning from the Pacific. Other sources are the ships list and Steve Morse. Steve Morse is a researcher. That's an actual person. And this guy started out with doing passenger lists. And so he has both of these, and they're very good. He's done, very obscure passenger lists of the Baltimore ports and New Orleans and Philadelphia, different sources. And so you can look through there that he's very, very good with that. Okay, naturalization records. Prior to 1906, an immigrant could file in any federal, state, county, or local court. So that meant that he probably went to the county seat that was closest to his town to file his declaration to become a citizen. After 1906, the declaration was filed in federal court. There are 3 steps: the declaration of intent, and that's called first papers. Sometimes in the census, it asks it says like citizen, and instead of saying yes or no, it'll say first PA, or it'll just say first. And that means that he's made a declaration of intent. The second are the final papers where they petition for citizenship, and that's PA. And then residency varied, but usually 5 years, resulting in the certificate of naturalization, NA. So if somebody says NA, they're through with the process. They're already naturalized. During the Civil War, 1861 to 65, any immigrants that joined up were granted citizenship after if they served. And so they really they went directly to naturalization with their discharge papers. Okay. This is an example of a declaration of intent, and you can see that it is for Newt Anderson, 34 years old. He's a fruit grower, and he's white, medium height, 5'8", 155 pounds, color of hair, dark, color of eyes, brown, no distinctive traits. And he was born in Brunflat, Norway. And he came on, and it gives his birth date. And then he came on the vessel Celtic. He came through Liverpool, England. And anyway, and tells where he absolutely came, and he's declaring that he wants to give up his allegiance to the King of Norway, of whom he is a subject, and take out his papers. So he wants to become a citizen. So that's the Declaration of Intent. Those are the first papers. This is a naturalization, and this is an 1875 one. John S. Waldron, Scotland, was born in the year 1850. He immigrated via and landed at the port of Detroit, Michigan in February of 1870. It gives me two things. It gives me his exact birth date that he knew, and it gives me his when he came to the country and what port he came through. And he's giving up his allegiance to the Queen of Great Britain, and there's a signature. Okay, so that is an actual naturalization. Women weren't naturalized on their own till about 1922. Children under 18, foreign born, were included under their father's naturalization. And as I've said before, the dates of naturalization are all often listed on censuses, are often by a few years because people forgot. And they mixed up the dates of their filing and their certification. So use a window of about 5 years. If your person took out naturalization papers, they're also found in the homestead filing claims. Okay, I want to go through quickly the 10 documents that are most productive. Newspaper obituaries, death notices, and social columns. Census records, state and federal. Biographies that might be in a mug book or a state history, a county history. Wills and probate records, and Ancestry is adding more of those. You have to go through those page by page, but they can give you a lot of information. The naturalization and passenger lists. Local and ethnic papers that we've talked about. Diaries. Sometimes a state will have a diary, or you might read the diary of somebody that's not related to you, but is in the same area and is writing about that town. Those are really very helpful. The vital records, birth, marriage, and death. Religious records, baptism, marriage bans, confirmation, land and property documents. So genealogy is a wonderful gift for yourself and your family. And start writing short biographies of each relative with your new information. I mean, we're not looking for, Hemingway or Faulkner here, just short information. And I will send you the 3 histories that I have written to give you an idea of what is possible and what you might want to do. And consider sharing your findings with the libraries, surname societies, databases, genealogical archives and association. Okay. So we just have, it has gone so quickly. that is amazing. You know, normally when we have this class in person, we only do 3 sessions, but because it's hard to sit here for, you know, an hour and a half, we've done 4, but it seems to go faster each time. So I don't want to keep you late, but I want to see if you have any additional questions before we close up. Anyone?
I have a question.
Yes.
So it appears that my father, he went to KU, and his daughters, they are big on that because they didn't live around here by the time they were born. So KU, Jayhawks didn't mean anything to them. So what kind of records does KU have for who was a student there? Do I just go up to KU and look for something?
If he is 87 and he attended in his 20s.
Yeah, it would have been, yes. And then it would have been like in the early 50s.
Okay, those records probably would be archived somewhere.
Oh, so like write to the registrar? Do they let
Yeah,
you
you
know
might
that?
write to the registrar and see if you could get a copy of his school records.
Oh, so the registrar would just let anybody have that?
I would put in the letter that, you know,
they could do it.
Yeah, that it's your father.
Okay.
But they would give you the full records. You know, that's a good question. You might also look up the KU yearbooks.
Yeah, or alumni association.
Yeah, you know, I don't know if they would release the records to you. I don't think they would, because the grades are kind of personal. I know UMKC doesn't release them.
Okay.
So I don't think you have access to that.
Okay, well, we can figure out something. Yeah. And here's just
your
something.
Your stepsisters are probably going to be a great resource for you.
Right, and as they said, well, their mother wrote to me, so she might be able to fill in a lot without having to do more research.
Yeah.
And here's just something interesting. I don't know that this would produce any results for anyone, but the half-sister sent that in this little town in Pennsylvania, there are 2 streets named for ancestors.
Oh.
And I believe it's maybe my grandparents. And so one is the father's last name, and the other street is the mother's last name.
Oh, interesting.
In a little town in Pennsylvania.
Well, that gives you the idea that they were prominent citizens, or that maybe that's an old historical society, you know, family, or that maybe they served in some capacity, you know, as, you know, mayor or for some reason they named the streets after them. So that sounds like that's kind of rich, that they might show up in a county history book.
I think those generations and back, I think that's already been documented by somewhere. So all my daughter had to do was just find the most recent couple of generations, and then everything else was already done.
Yeah. Well, and you also might try Googling their name with like the area and some, like a date, like, you know, John Brown plus 1850 plus Allegheny, Pennsylvania, and see if anything pops up. And you might, I mean, somebody might have a Facebook page. Somebody might have an open family tree site. A lot of people, you know, have their own websites where they just have them open and people can go in and look at family history. Or have you looked at US Gen Web for that county? You need to do that. Okay, so that might be real rich if you've got some people that pay attention to the history Now, I've said that all the US Gen websites are not equal. Some are much, much better than others. And some get associated with a library, and the library kind of helps add to that and adds pictures and, you know, historical stuff to that. So again, it's highly individual because it's all volunteer, but you also might find if there's a genealogical society in that area
Mhm.
that publishes something. And the as Ted pointed out, weren't you out reading some genealogical magazines and newsletters? So there
Newsletters.
might be something like that. So I think that sounds like there's a lot of research there for you, Nancy, that
Mhm.
you know might find some more personal stories. So okay,
Thank you.
anyone else? Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Well, I would encourage you all, if you're interested, to do more DNA. I know that you know Nancy's done it and Ted's done it, but it will give you a lot of resources. I just got a hit this last week from a young woman. Turns out that on my Scottish side, back to Kilbirnie, Scotland, and she was making a trip back to see her grandfather, who she said had a family book, and she was going to get back to me. So I'm anxiously awaiting this week to see, you know, if she has any information that I don't have. But so that is a good DNA hit that I've gotten. They're not always that positive. I'm now at 500, and I would say 450 of them, I have no clue. I mean, I know they're Irish, I know they're Scottish, but you know, and some are Polish, but I don't, you know, don't have much of a clue. But I'm working on it. So maybe the next time we talk, and I hope to meet you all in person. And I've met Ted already, obviously, but see you all at maybe the one of the events at Spark, and we can compare notes on where you all are on your hunting. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. If you don't have anything additional, anyone?
Good luck, Nancy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good
Jerry,
luck.
I'll see you Saturday. Probably we can talk shop.
What's that?
I'm gonna see Jerry Saturday, probably at the neighborhood.
Oh, so you're gonna volunteer for, well, yeah, great, thanks.
We can talk about this.
Okay.
I can
Well,
help you.
thank you all. Thank you all so much for your attention. And I again will send you those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 additional handouts, including the female nicknames, which I was delighted to see. Very serendipity that that I ran across it. So have a wonderful rest of the week, and good luck in all your hunting and
Thank you,
all
Mary.
Thank
of
you.
your activities. Okay. Bye now. Thank you, Jerry, for hosting.
My pleasure.
Okay, bye now.
Hi.